Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Bill on Bikes, teleprompter and script free as usual. What's going on in the shop this week? It's a Monday. We're pretty busy, and let me take you around and show you some of the things we have going on. All right, first up, 2011 Road Glide, and that's here for a Feuling cam oil pump kit. Here's the parts that we're going to be using. Of course, I love the Feuling kits, Feuling cam support plate, oil pump. We're going to run the Barnett spring plate system. We're probably going to run the 58-pound springs, but we have the option to run 66 and the 40s. Solid push rods. These are the ones, the one-piece ones. These are what I really like to run. I will explain that later in the video when we get the engine apart. S&S breather. It's also going to be getting black Chromeworks mufflers that I have out front, and the exhaust systems over on the head pipes over on another bench. Later in the week, going to be installing this grudge box tranny on a 22 Street Glide. It might be a Road Glide, I don't remember. Of course, we have our Springer project here, the Springer front end that we're going to be putting on this Softail Slim. And some of the other bikes that are here, wiring on the big dog, waiting for parts, an APC custom, that's getting a lot of work. We'll go over that later. That Road King's done. The one behind it's here for wiring issues. We got a 500 Street up there with issues, and that Softail, that's going to be another project I'll mention in another date. But anyway, that's what we got going today. We got some other bikes over there in the door. It's raining outside today, so I cannot take the bikes outside. So that's where we're at. So follow along as we disassemble this 2011 Road Glide, and we'll get moving. All right, we're continuing with our teardown of this 2011 twin cam to do our 574 cam install. Just a couple notes. One thing you may have noticed, I don't cut the push rods. There are a lot of guys who will go in here, they won't take the rockers off, they cut the push rods, put adjustables in, slap this all together, and everybody's happy. Not really, I don't do it that way, and here's the main reason. One, I want to be able to change the rocker gaskets. They usually are leaking, like this bike. They already had a leak. I pre-washed everything. Before I ever tear down an engine, transmission, anything like that, I go ahead and wash the engine down, make sure everything's nice and clean. But I did notice a leak, so I always like to change those out. Also, the breathers that sit in the rockers here, these are the later stamped steel ones, and they're pretty good. They're about the best rendition Harley has had. But I always replace these. I mean, they're only about roughly, I want to say 30 bucks a piece. I always replace with new ones. So you have the kind of the sponge here and the umbrella valve, which sits up on top of this. This doesn't want to cooperate and pull apart, but I'm changing it anyway. And I want to put a new gasket on. The gaskets get brittle. They tear easily, like this one. It's kind of brittle. So I always want to, change those out, because you don't want to have oil carry over into the air cleaner. Another thing you may notice, I'm not keeping the stock push rods. I've taken, throw them in the box, and I'm going to give them back to the customer. Reason I do that, I am not going to run adjustables either. I'm going to run solid fueling rods. And the reason I do the solid one piece, I don't have to worry about the adjuster coming loose. If you're running a cam that has a stock base circle, remember the stock base circle, you can run a one-piece push rod, which is the way to go. They come in different lengths for different cams. In this case, I'm going to be running stock length. And the idea of different lengths of push rods, or if you have adjustables, is you want to set the actual tappet in the tappet body in the middle of the range. They have about 200 thousandths play. You're looking somewhere around 100,000. If you were 10 thousandths either way of that, you know, plus or minus, it's not going to be a big deal. It's not an issue. Now, with a higher lift cam, something that doesn't have a stock base circle, yes, we're going to have to run adjustables. We may even run a solid tappet, which I don't really like to do, but I will run travel limiters, which will limit the travel of the tappet if it tends to collapse, so you don't do any damage to the engine. And that's on big stuff. So, but with a 574 or smaller, we're not going to have to worry about that. So that's why I do that. And it's the same thing on M8. So we're going to be doing an M8 job here soon. I'm going to show you the we're going to run a 3030 star cam, which I really like. They get that thump back in the engine for the sound. I love it. Anyway, that's on an M8. That's going to be probably in the next couple weeks. We'll be shooting that video. But that's why I don't cut the push rods. Now you know. If someone's in a hurry and they want to cut them, I mean, I have done it in the past, and it just usually end up having a leak. You're not changing out the O-rings. These O-rings get brittle over time. So like the one for the drain up here for the breather, you know, you wouldn't be getting to that if you weren't pulling the rockers. So I don't like to cut the push rods. Obviously, you could change out the O-rings for the push rod covers, but I don't know. So I like to do it the right way. It takes a little more time. Yeah, customer's going to spend a little more money, but for that extra 2 or 3 hours of labor by the time you're totally done, is it worth it? In my opinion, it is, to get all new parts and not have to worry about it and have the guy coming back and, you know, 2,000 miles with a leak. It's not good, especially when you're a one-man show. Like I said, you got to keep the comebacks to a minimum. If I have 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 200, I mean, that's how small my comeback rating is. So anyway, we're going to continue with the teardown, so let's get to it. And I also want to mention that there's been different renditions of breather assemblies. This is the second generation. It's aluminum. The ones prior to this were plastic. They tended to warp and leak. So again, another reason you got to pull the rockers so you can get in there to change it. The aluminum ones were pretty good, but I've had these warp in the past and leak. And then they went to the newer stamped steel ones. These are the best unit, and again, they're cheap to replace, so just replace them as a unit. There are aftermarket companies like Feuling that have, and I think Trask has some too. I haven't used the Trask ones, but I have used the Feuling breathers. They're a really nice billet piece. But these stock stamped steel ones are fine. And also, another reason to pull the rockers and not cut the push rods is you can check rocker end play, the rocker arms, make sure there's no excess play in them. Make sure there's no lateral play or vertical play here as you move them around. So you can't do that if you're not pulling the rockers. And again, I'm going to pull the bottom rocker because I want to change the gaskets because they tend to leak. And I don't know if you noticed when I was loosening these, when I went to break the screws, 3 of them were very loose. So this is where your rocker box gasket leak comes in on the bottom side. And again, if I wasn't pulling the rockers and I was just trying to put short adjustables up in here, you never would have found that. For you guys working at home, be careful when you're removing this bottom rocker gasket. The edge is really sharp, and if you go across it with your hand, you'll slice it right open. That's for you guys that don't wear gloves like me. I'm well beyond the glove stage. I don't know how you guys work with them. I've never worn gloves, never will, but that's okay. Unless I'm working with something hot or welding, I'm not wearing gloves, but just be careful when you remove these.